Hello, hello. It's just 1 minute before 11, so I just wanted to pop in here early and excited to be back. It's been a great month, which I'll fill you in on a minute. Um, and I'll fill you in on a couple things that we're going to talk about today as soon as the clock turns 11. So I hope you have your favorite beverage. I have my Costa Rican coffee. We literally bring our coffee with us now from Costa Rica everywhere we go. We've become a bit of coffee snobs. But anyway, welcome back. And I'm so excited to be here. So I have been with my family for the past month. And for those of you who know me, I have two daughters, and one lives in Japan with her family. So I don't see them but every couple of years. That will change. They're in the Navy, so they're about to get assigned somewhere else. We'll know that in the next month or so. But anyway, so we were all together. We took our granddaughter to Costa Rica for her grandparent trip, and then we were all together in North Carolina, and it was amazing. It was such a wonderful time. I did get a bit of a cold, which is why last week you probably saw that I had to record that and give you a link to one of the lessons in my Exploring Mixed Media. But that's okay. We get through these things, right? So, it is the end of July already. I can't believe that. And I am geared up. I'm in Florida right now. I'll be back in Costa Rica in a couple of weeks for the duration. So, just a few things that I wanted to go over today on our Mixed Media Monday. And I'm going to try to bring you back to the beginning of my journey and my elevation of my art and what I teach as a result of going through that process and what I learned. So, first of all, the last week I did a short little recording of me looking decrepit with my cold, but with a link to one of the lessons in Exploring Mixed Media, which is part of my Studio Insiders membership. And that lesson is about enhancing collage pieces. So we're doing, in the beginning of Exploring Mixed Media, I have students do some mini studies. Let me show you that. So I always suggest a book, right? And I'm going to show you my first book that I started with years ago when I started figuring this whole process out myself. But in that lesson that I recorded, I showed you how I was adding some enhanced colors to these collage mixed media pieces. And I'm sorry, I don't have my overhead camera today, so you're just going to have to see me like this. But yeah, so that lesson is all about, there's some gold, there's some hot pink, there's different things that I added into that. And it's about a 9-10 minute lesson that will show you how I did that. And you can actually see some of that gold shimmering in some of these pieces. So those accent colors at the end really make a big difference. And they're kind of the final layer, usually for me. Sometimes I'll go in and add some paint pen marks or something over some of these. But these are kind of abstract, except for this one. This one is like a little lemon grove with some hot pink flowers that I'm developing down here. So, yeah, so we're going to talk about that in a minute and how important mini studies are to get your creative juices flowing, but also to kind of refine your work and to be able to really hone in on what it is you love. And I'll show you real quick. I was going to do this later, but since I have the book open, this is one of the mini studies that we do in the course that has you just use paint. And these are all the same color paints, but used very differently. And you can see the dramatic differences in those. So we'll talk some more about that in a minute. But anyway, back to that lesson from last week. And then the week before that, I unlisted my 10-minute meditation, which is a great thing to do before you start creating. It just sort of gets you in that zone and brings your breathing down, just hopefully gets rid of some of the distractions in your life so that you can like sit down at your table and create some really original, authentic stuff that makes you feel really good. So I'm going to leave because it's been so scattered this month for me traveling and zipping all over. I'm going to leave those 2 lessons up for 1 more week, and then they'll go back as unlisted and just for the Studio Insider members. But check those out. I think that you'll find them pretty interesting. Okay, so that's kind of a recap of the last couple of weeks. Now I want to talk about really the whole basis for what elevated my work and how I teach now and how I see my students really growing as a result of this process. So no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're just starting out or you're an advanced, experienced artist, the artist journey is circular. You'll hear me repeat the same things over and over again because it's true, and I have to remind myself. Each piece that you start with is a whole new beginning. You may have your favorite colors, your favorite materials, all of that, which is part of the process and learning all of those parts and pieces of you as an artist subject. But each piece is a new adventure. And when you approach it like that, it's so exciting. Like every time you start with a new piece of paper, a new wood panel, new canvas, whatever it is, you have a chance to do something incredible. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to, but that's okay. Part of my suggestion for working through those kinds of problems is to work on more than one piece at a time. And I very typically do that. You can't see them, but I've got 2 pieces behind me that I'm working on. And I keep going back and forth so that if I get stuck and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure what I want to do with this one right now, I put it aside and I work on the other one. And if I don't know what I want to do with either one of those, then I put both of them aside and go to something different. So my 4-part process is exploration, experimentation, documentation, and then practice and refinement. So the exploration part is about finding the things that inspire you. And I encourage you to create some kind of folder, whether it's on your desktop or in your phone or on Pinterest, or you want to print things out, that's always really helpful, of things that you're drawn to. And really, ideally, it would be great if they were in your book, because your book is going to tell your story. So if you print out a couple little inspiration things, you'll start to see a pattern, you'll start to see what you like. It might be subjects, it might be colors, it might be texture, it might be abstract, it might be, who knows, right? But just start gathering those things and putting them in there. And they don't have to be art related, it can be anything. You know, people, maybe you like people, maybe you see interesting people in the airport, or you know, in your neighborhood, or wherever it is. So just exploration. And then experimentation. And this is where you start with these mini studies. And you start playing with colors, and you start playing with materials, and you start playing with subject matters, and different things that you think you might be interested in. And that's kind of where I want to take you back to in this video, to my very first, very disorganized little sketchbook that I started doing this process. And I started just randomly experimenting. Sorry, gotta get it in the right frame. This is fabric that I was using some ink pens on. And this is how archaic this is. I used green tape, green painter's tape to put them in here. This is also fabric, and I was experimenting with stamps, and I made notes about what I liked or how I did it. This is masking tape, alcohol ink on top of it. This is aluminum foil with different, that's a great way to add some really interesting texture. And then I started to add things like plants. And you know, these aren't very good. These are my first ones. Look at this sad little lotus flower. I mean, really, I've come a long way. um, but this is really what I wanted to show you, is this waterfall. So I probably did this 10 years ago at least, and it is acrylic. It's a very basic outline, and it's got a little glitter in it, which you can't really see in here. And I made some notes about use more of this and add cascading rocks. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's a little note over here on the side. And then improve the sky and the rocks. So this was, I remember doing this and getting, like, understanding the motion of the water, understanding the gravity of where this water would come from and how it would cascade down. And it was really cool to go back to this and see where I started and where I am now, because my waterfall paintings now are very detailed and very textural and loaded with interest. Far more sophisticated than this, but this is where I started, so this is where you need to start. So this was my original book, and there's literally, like, I have things I haven't even, they're just loose. You know, I started doing, and this is a great thing to do when you travel, some watercolor and inks. These are just quick little sketches. I can show you how to, here's a little winterscape. And this is how I started. I just kept a little hydrangea. So I encourage you to do this and experiment with different things, whether it's watercolors, acrylics. And you can do it in a little sketchbook like this, and you'll end up with some cool little mini paintings. But if you do it in a much more organized way, which is how I teach it now, in a mixed media book or a 140-pound watercolor book, heavy enough papers, because it takes a lot of water and ink, and, you know, it's wet. So you're going to really see your story unfold much quicker, and you'll have everything documented in one place. So that's the next step. From exploration and experimentation, we go to documentation. And that is probably the most important part of the process, because as you create printed papers or mix a color you love, you may not remember how you did that. So documenting it and then doing it over and over again, which is the practice and refinement, will get you to a place where your style is going to start to be inherent to you. It's going to come more naturally, and over time it's going to develop into something really amazing. So, four-part process: exploration, experimentation, documentation, most important part, and probably the part that artists don't do as much, and then practice and refinement. So get yourself some books. Try to stay fairly organized with, you know, this page is all my favorite colors. These are some of the materials I like. And then start creating mini studies in those colors and materials. Because if you're kind of hodgepodge, like my initial one was, it took me a long time to refine that down. Like, the waterfall really spoke to me, and I knew that I liked the subject. And so I did do, I don't have it with me, but I did do in a bigger book, like the one that I suggest you get, 9 by 12. I did a whole mini series of waterfalls. And I learned the right brushes that would help me, and again, studied the gravity of the water flow. So I now use German glass glitter and mica in my waterfalls, so they sparkle like water would if the sun were hitting it. So it's really, really helpful. And then again, it's really fun to go back and see where you started and how far you have evolved. So this four-part process will tell your story. So even if you're an experienced artist, I would encourage you to go back to the beginning, record everything if you haven't done that yet, pictures of your work. I've got a whole series of my work over the years and have really been able to see exactly how it's evolved. So that's what we'll be talking a lot about, this four-part process, lots of techniques, but I'm always going to come back to this, that your art journey is circular, not linear, and explore, experiment, document, and then practice and refine. So I hope that is something that resonates with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week in Mixed Media Mondays. I love talking all things mixed media, and I'm glad to be back at it. So if there's anything in particular that you would like me to address, you can put that in the comments, and I will be happy to do that. So I hope you have a wonderful creative week, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Bye for now.